point about the whole... Actually, let's bring Isabel in. How are you?
Super well, thank you.
Super well. My point is, which is very unpopular, is if you are escaping a war-torn country, absolutely fine. But why do you go through countries that are not war-torn to come to our country? Well, I know why, because we're going to treat you better.
Well, completely. But just picking up on your previous comment about the young family that was put further down the list than the Ukrainians, I mean, you can argue, you can make a defence for that if you're the British government at the beginning of the war with Ukraine and maybe even a few months into the war with Ukraine. We're now at a point, I'm not saying the war is by any means over, that conflict rages on, but there are Ukrainian refugees in this country who are now going back to Ukraine on holiday. So, you know, dynamics have changed, and I'm not sure now that there is a justification for Ukrainians at this point to be given preferential treatment over our own voters.
I don't disagree with that. I guess what I was using as an example for Isabel was to say that we showed ourselves to be, you know, all the do-gooders will say, the reason we need to take all of these immigrants in, whether they're legal or illegal, is because we, the United Kingdom, need to show that we're a place to be proud of. And my argument to that is, which isn't very popular, what it is on talk, is that actually people who were born here and pay their taxes need to be proud of this country, and they are at the back of the queue. Now, the counter-argument will be, yes, but these people don't know what it's like to be born into a war-torn country. No, they don't. But they're not born into a war-torn country because we can prove that so many are coming here to take advantage of our systems.
Well, completely. I mean, the government itself last week announced that a great deal, a high proportion of the migrants coming over in boats are actually coming from Vietnam. Now, look at the geography there. I mean, they're making one hell of a journey from a country which actually, I mean, I love Vietnam. It's one of the most beautiful countries in the world. Last time I checked, it didn't have a war going on.
No.
I mean, you might not like its government. It's still pretty communist, but it isn't a place where you need to flee from war and terror. And you certainly don't need to flee right to the other side of the world.
Do you think we've become soft in the United Kingdom? Do you think we're the laughing stock?
I'm not even sure that we need to answer that question, even ask the question. Of course, we're a complete soft touch. I mean, this is why migrants are shopping for countries. And when they're shopping for countries... we're at the top of the list, aren't we?
But you see, why is it then that most people, or maybe I live in this bubble, why is it that most people agree and believe what you say to be true? Why is it that apparently we're not allowed to say that? Why is that so politically incorrect? Why can...
It all depends who you talk to. I mean, I was talking to someone this morning who didn't accept that the huge amount of immigration to this country is having an impact on our housing shortage. I mean, of course it is. It's a supply and demand.
And our public services, which are on their arse anyway.
It's a numbers game. You know, we don't even have to have a debate about nationalities.
No.
If you import literally millions of people over a period of years and you don't build more homes, guess what? There's less homes for people.
But we know about the homes thing, don't we? We've talked about this before. Every single politician of every single political side will jump up and down and say, we need more houses. And when push comes to shove, none of them want them in their constituencies.
And indeed, none of those bleeding hearts who are all saying, oh, well, we must have more refugees in this country, must be nice to everyone, we must give them all the benefit of the doubt. They're all escaping war and terror or terrible persecution because of their sexuality or their religion. Those very same people are the ones kicking off about housing developments.
You know what, you are so right. Can we talk about Rwanda liftoff? The first asylum seekers lined up to be sent to Rwanda have been detained by immigration officials. Yesterday we had the farcical thing. Right, so somebody in the Home Office goes, we need to send some people to Rwanda. Let's go to a detention centre. There's nobody in there. Right, let's send some emails to people, maybe they're somewhere in England, and ask them to come to the detention centre so we can then put them on a plane. Well, that's not going to happen. This is the Home Office, Isabel.
What an absolute racket this is. I mean, there are so many people making a good living out of this. I mean, I can see a kind of circuit that cynical migrants could do where they come into this country, collect £3,000, a bit like the Monopoly board. You know, take your £3,000.
Go past go, collect £3 grand.
Get your nice private jet to Rwanda, which the government keeps telling us is a nice place to go on holiday. You got your accommodation paid for. Rinse and repeat.
Well, this is exactly what loads of people have texted today. Is there anything to stop the migrants who are going to Rwanda on a private jet, one by one apparently, right? Nobody will fly them. Anyway, this is true. With their £3 grand, Can they come back? Presumably they can. They can say, Rwanda's not safe.
Of course they can come back again. Of course they can. And do you know how
Has any person in this country, right, and I'm being completely serious, ever been given £3 for doing absolutely jack?
Sadly, not me. I don't know about you.
Never.
No.
So this one person went, and I want to ask you politically, you are an international editor, you know so much about all things, but here's what I want to ask you. Is this a game changer for Sunak? Is there any part of you that thinks the British public will go, yeah, he's got it under control, I believe him now? Because, I mean, you know, let's be honest, let's try and be fair and balanced. The Irish situation would tell me that certain people are being affected by Rwanda.
No. Look, this isn't going to work. But I do think there's more than one or two fishy things going on here. I do wonder whether the desperation apparent in the last few days of the government to show that they're doing something means that Rishi Sunak wants to just keep his options open. If the results of tomorrow's elections don't go his way and there's a move against him, is he just putting the parts in place to be able to call an election next week if he needs to? Because he wants to be able to demonstrate he's doing something. Just one figure to share with you now. You know, we've had one person who went off on their private jet. Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. Well done, government. You've done
well
a great
done. Private jet to Rwanda with £3.
Do you know how many
and
people,
their accommodation paid for 5 years.
How many people have not been put off by the government's Rwanda scheme since it became law? 800. So 800 people are not put off. They've since the bill became law.
Wow.
They have come across the channel. So is it working? I don't know. Dear listeners, 800 versus one dude who took the money very wisely, I have to say. Great gig for him.
Yeah.
He took his £3
and free accommodation for 5 years
what a
in
laugh.
Kigali.
What a laugh.
So, I mean, I said it earlier. There are people who've worked 12-hour shifts today, are coming on the way home, they've got 2 kids, they can't meet their bills. These people must be laughing
and
at
it's
this
hard
situation.
it's actually hard to save up £3. You know, to get that in a lump sum, most people just struggle just to make ends meet, and also because
why don't we care about those people?
They're paying for their accommodation. You know, your biggest single thing apart from your food shop is usually your accommodation. That's probably more expensive. So that guy with his £3, it goes a very long way in other parts of the world. I would
suspect that. I mean, and he gets that on top of his accommodation. I mean, it does sort of get you to a point, Isabel, where you think, and I hate this phrase, but do we not to think about the people at home that are struggling?
Well, look, that's the government's first duty. It is to the people of Great Britain. It isn't. We're not an international government. You know, they are elected by the British voter, and their first duty is to the British people. And resources are finite. And I know all the bleeding hearts want us to be everything for everybody, but we can't be. It's just like the NHS. It's a national health service, not an international health service. We don't owe everything to everyone. Now, of course, a civilised country wants to do its bit in situations like the war with Ukraine, but there are wars everywhere. So if you've got an open doors policy to anyone who says they're fleeing war and terror, very soon we're not actually going to be a nation state anymore.
I might as well get you on this before you go, because this is my favourite. And I'm not an intelligent man, but I've been thinking this for a long, long time. So, and I've tried this before, and people just shoot me down in flames. There's 3 million people unemployed. You know that, don't you?
I think there's quite a lot more than that. Do you mean on out-of-work benefits? Yeah. I think there's many more.
All right, well, I'm just going to say 3, of which I'm told, whenever I suggest this, they're all mentally ill or disabled. Here's my point. You know these immigrants who come into this country to fill up the jobs in the NHS?
Yeah.
Porters, not doctors, porters, cooks, whatever.
Low-skilled.
Low-skilled. Fair play to them. Love the work ethic. If we say 1 million people are disabled and mentally ill, why don't we get the other 2 million off the dole and make them do the jobs? Stop other people coming to our country and make the people who we're paying to do jack go and do those jobs. Why is that so alien to anybody's way of thinking? Because why should you not give something back? I'm ranting again, but why should you not give something back to society?
Look, I wrote about this yesterday in the Telegraph, saying that actually, there are 18 to 24-year-olds. There's nearly 500,000 18 to 24-year-olds who are on out-of-work benefits. Why can't they help clean up the streets? Not just to bring in that whole sense of not something for nothing.
And also getting out of bed, having something on your CV, giving you a purpose.
Fresh air, being in a team, being out, being able to have some structure to your day.
Why do the bleeding hearts always say, but they're all ill?
Do you know what those people all said to me? Oh, well, you wouldn't do it. Well, you know what? Guess what? I'm up for it. If any of those bleeding hearts think I'm too posh to pick up litter, I'm not. So I'm volunteering here and now to go along with a bleeding heart and do some litter picking.
I'm going to use that phrase from now on, bleeding heart, because I never know what to call them. Finally, and I know you've got...
That's my polite version, by the way.
What's your rude version?
Oh, no, we couldn't possibly go there on
That's a get home of common sense. That's the first time Ryan, our new producer, has got 2 speeds, dead slow and stop. He looked slightly shocked there. It took a while for the shocked face to come out. He was a little bit shocked. We've done... did you see the stuff about the universities overnight in America?
I just would love to take them a map of the world and say, can you please point to where Gaza is? You know, these people, they will not have any clue about the actual complexities of the things that they're arguing about. They just think that being on the side of people who live in Gaza and being on the side of people who blow up Israelis is the nice, kind, #BeKind cause. Don't have a clue.
Try explaining that to my Jewish friends. They wouldn't understand that in a million years. I have Jewish friends who are too scared to go out in London.
Yeah, it is obscene, and I always worry that what happens in America is on its way here fairly rapidly. And how long is it before we see these sorts of scenes in our own university and on our own campuses?
Couldn't agree more. It's so lovely to have you here. Will you come again?
I would be absolutely delighted.
We love her. Isabel Oakeshott, thank you very much indeed.